Hi guys, welcome back to today's video. So today's video is going to be another Bongo video. It's going to be how I made the juvenile version of the Bongo. Turned out really cute. Ears, huge ears with a cute little face. This one was a little bit more difficult than the adult Bongo just because it was a smaller size, but so proportionately I had to make smaller little things like the little hooves and stuff. But yeah, we got there. This one was also very labor intensive. I used a bit of a different technique for the stripes on this doll, but like I said in the adult video, you can check out those two processes over on my Patreon, where I cover how I did the stripes basically. But yeah, the rest of the doll, my cat's digging in bags. Yeah, the rest of the doll will be on this video obviously, so if you want to know how I made him, then keep watching. Alrighty, so if you haven't already seen my video on how I sculpted this head, check it out on my YouTube channel. I try and remember to link it, but I never do. But yeah, you can find out all the process that I did for sculpting this head, as well as the adult Bongo head. I did use Sculpey Original to sculpt most of this head, with some support from epoxy sculpt around the ears and where I attach the armature. It does have an aluminium foil core, so it's a lot lighter, but you can see all that in the video if you're interested in how I sculpted it. So once it's been baked, I can start painting everything. So before I start painting things, I usually prime it. That goes for polymer clay or resin. I prime it in it's a canvas primer by the brand Derivian Matisse. I have it on my YouTube channel if you want to see what I prime my stuff with. I just go into a little bit of detail about what I use to prime and like what it does, but it just basically provides a good tooth for the paint to stick to. So I'm using just a water-based acrylic paint to paint most of it. It is by the brand Acryl. As you can see, it is a little bit transparent, so there needs to be a couple of layers of paint applied to this, just get a good coverage. And I always recommend to test out any paint that you're using, or solvents, or anything that you're using on the pieces that you're applying it to. So that goes for resin and polymer clay, because sometimes things that you use on different surfaces have a different reaction. So I did paint a Hanya mask at one point that didn't quite, the paint didn't quite mix together right, or there was some sort of leakage in the resin itself, and the paint didn't dry. It sort of went gummy and you could just peel it right off. So always test it out on a small piece before you know, and just so you know how your materials react with each other as well, because you don't want to start, you know, painting a piece that you're really happy with and then only for the paint to have a weird or bad reaction to it, and then you having to start it all over again or it get damaged. So yeah, highly recommend just testing it out beforehand. So most of the painting has been finished on this one. Just doing again a couple of coats of paint to get that good coverage, and making sure that it is drying properly between each coat so it doesn't do anything wacky or weird. When you're painting white bits, I recommend leaving the bits unpainted, so you can have a nice clean white color. So sometimes when you're painting, especially red pigmented paints, they tend to leach through white paints, so I highly recommend just leaving bits blank that you want white. Moving on to the little hooves. So these hooves are an original cast in resin that I made for a Caribou doll a while ago, and I just sort of modified them with some epoxy sculpt, and the same sort of process with the painting. So the fur that I'm going to be using isn't actually really fur, it's a minky fabric, and it's sort of soft, and it's got a really short pile, and it worked really well for the Bongo skin, because they don't have stereotypical fur. They've got really, really short fur, kind of like a horse or like a buffalo, I guess. And yeah, I just thought this minky fabric worked really well. So I had to sew or modify the the stripes onto the body of these. So that stripe video is over on my Patreon. I'll go through 2 different methods that I did for creating these stripes. This was a sewing method, and that's one of the ones that you can find over on my Patreon for my $5 and up tiers. I'll also have how I felted the body before I added the skin over the top. That is coming up on my Patreon as well. So heaps of different things on there, especially for these bongo ones. I'm going to put up a armature video as well for this bongo over on my Patreon. So there'll be a couple of videos going up this month over there for my $5 and up tiers. Link is in the description if you're interested in that. And yeah, moving on to the actual body. So basically what I did was I created a skin, so to speak, for the actual body. So I left quite a large area open so I could put the skin over the armature. The armature that I'm using is a ball and socket armature, and I really like using the ball and socket armature over wire armatures now. It does provide less of a posability, but it's a bit more stable, and it can hold a bit more weight, and for me it's a bit more easily accessible than a good wire armature as well, and less breakage. So basically what I'm doing is I'm draping that skin over the frame or the armature of the body, and then I'm going to be bulking it up with some polyfill and sewing all of the loose ends open. So basically I went around and pinned where I wanted the body to be sewn up, just so I can see and get a good shape and just something to follow when I'm sewing this up. So all of the pieces that I have left open, I'm now using a ladder stitch and sewing it up by hand, and just sort of refining the body a little bit more with some polyfill as I'm sewing it up, just so I can get all those little muscle definition and get all the polyfill into the crevices that needed a little bit more bulking. So with the bongo, they have a little bit more of a shoulder blade area, so I wanted to stick that up and just see bits and pieces that I needed to sew up a bit more. So on this particular doll, I refined the body a little bit more around the spine area. There was a little bit of bulging, so I sewed it up a little bit more and just refined it a bit more around the neck and also the back end area as well. So that's pretty much the whole process. I didn't need to apply any faux fur for this one because obviously I painted the pieces, but yeah, if you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and check me out on Patreon if you're interested in more stuff, and my shop, Creatures of Nat. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Nat. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!